this is, as we know, the only time that the entire world has gone through the same thing at the same time. And so it's always fascinating and also important to hear how other areas of the world dealt with this pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic is the biggest crisis in Europe since World War II. That's a fact. And it's been fascinating to see how each country has dealt with it, but also how the EU has dealt with it. The Germans, as they fit their national stereotype, for the first wave, they were ready. They organized, they traced, they tested, so they were not so hard hit by the first wave. They were hit by the second wave now. But they did really well in the beginning, and that's thanks mostly to this woman, the Chancellor of Germany for the last 15 years, Angela Merkel. She's a physicist, she's a scientist, no surprise. I remember early on her making these shocking speeches talking about there's gonna be, there could be 100,000 dead in Germany and across Europe, hundreds of thousands, and people were just stunned. Amidst all of this, the EU was amazing. It came together and it did something it had never done before. It took out common debt. It launched a 750 billion euro bailout package with the backing of EU bonds. And this was, for the longest time for Germany, which is the biggest economy in Europe, that was a taboo. They never did it in the Eurozone crisis. We're not going to take out European-backed debt for individual countries. But Merkel, she really went to bat, and she told the German people, you're not going to be okay unless all your European fellows are okay. Then came the vaccine in December, right? It was fantastic. And in another historic move, the EU came together to buy the vaccine for all countries together to avoid competition, to guarantee equal access. It was a very noble effort. It's a wonderful idea, right? But they did not realize how difficult it was going to be to get 450 million doses, right? So the EU has been very slow. It's been a disaster. Everything that could have possibly gone wrong has gone wrong. The regulators, the Brits got the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine 3 weeks before the EU. They were taking it over Christmas. We were watching in the EU, Americans and Brits being vaccinated, and we still didn't have it approved in Europe. Right now, today, 25% of Americans have been vaccinated. The UK has vaccinated 33% of its citizens, and yet only 8% of people in the EU have been vaccinated. And in France, it's just 6%. But it's been really bad. And in France, it's been compounded by the high rate of vaccine skeptics. I mean, there's a huge problem in France. 40% of the French today say they're not going to get vaccinated. EU still has time to get a lot right, but this whole pandemic poses huge existential questions about the EU's existence, about closer integration, about open borders. Is there going to be another pandemic? Will people ever go back to the office like before? Will city centers become ghost towns? And there's going to be just devastation, economic carnage. How many restaurants and cafes will never open again? Governments are in huge debt. Across the EU, they have spent billions paying companies to keep employees employed so they don't have mass layoffs. It's good, but how long can it go on? And also the pandemic has highlighted Europe's overdependence on countries like China and India for medicines, for protective equipment. There's real warnings that if Europe doesn't catch up to what the UK and what Israel and what the US even is doing, that the economic damage is going to be triple fold if people cannot open up this summer. I think everyone is just focusing on this summer. There's a huge drive across the EU to get vaccinated by this summer. I think right now, people feel like there's going to be a reordering of not just the EU, but of society, of work, of environment, everything. And there may be winners and losers, and we're just waiting to get out of this to see what is going to happen. But we're on the cusp of a new era, and that's really felt in Europe. Thanks, everyone.